So today's guest has a story that touches nearly every part of what it means to rebuild your health and your life. She has walked through an eating disorder, a devastating cancer diagnosis, financial struggles, strained relationships, and a profound loss of health and energy. But her recovery ultimately led her to a deeper surrender to God and completely changed the direction of her life. Today, she is known as the Calm Mom. She's a neuro-nutrition expert and functional nutritional therapist who helps women address anxiety, depression, chronic stress, and overwhelm through a deeper understanding of the connection between brain, body, and function. Today, we're going to talk about her remarkable journey, what our brains may be trying to tell us when we experience anxiety and depression, and how nutrition and lifestyle can influence the way we think, feel, and function. And that story is coming up next. Is something standing between you and your happiness? It was for me. I had to face my depression and the constant negative self-talk. Therapy helped me realize I deserve to be happy. That's why this podcast is called I Choose Health, because I made the choice to heal, and I want to share that with you. As a gift to you, we've partnered with BetterHelp as our sponsor to help you start your own healing journey. We all face moments when life feels overwhelming, whether it's stress, anxiety, or just feeling stuck. Talking to someone can make a real difference. And that's where our sponsor, BetterHelp, comes in. BetterHelp offers professional online therapy that's convenient, affordable, and entirely on your schedule. You can connect with a licensed therapist by video, phone, or even chat, whatever works best for you. Let our sponsor, BetterHelp, support you on your journey to better mental health. You can get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth. That's betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth for 10% off your first month. Take the first step toward feeling better today.
As a teenager, I decided to live better, so I gave up the meat, eggs, and cheddar. At 20 and 30, I wanted more, so I strengthened my mind and my core. Living a life that is healthier and wealthier because I choose health.
Welcome back to the I Choose Health podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Leslie. And today I'm really excited to speak to our guest. So I want to invite to the show Dr. Laurie Hammer. So Laurie Hammer, welcome to the I Choose Health podcast.
Thank you, Stefan. I'm so delighted to be here.
Same. And Laurie, before we get into the work that you do, take us back to that period when your own health began to unravel. What was happening in your life?
Well, I was in my teens and early 20s. I had developed an eating disorder for almost 12 years. And it got really worse after I left home and went to college. And so the anxiety, depression, the eating disorders kind of took over my life. And I was struggling a lot, suicidal thoughts. I got to the point where I was taking so many laxatives and binging and purging every day that I was, having a seizure, ended up in the ER, those kind of things. And I was trying to get into eating disorder programs, but I wasn't suicidal enough. My weight wasn't low enough, and I didn't fit the parameters, even though every day was a struggle and I didn't know really what to do. So I ended up going to an outpatient clinic that my friend found, who was actually my nursing professor at the time. And I found out that it was in Mill Valley, California, and their mantra was that you are addicted to what you're allergic to. And that was in regards to any type of addiction, whether it was food disorder, cocaine addiction or whatever. And so they used amino acid therapy. So it was very intriguing to me. And so I went out there as an outpatient. Indeed, I found out I had celiac disease. Everything I was binging on I was sensitive to. It was really wrecking my health. And then they did amino acid therapy on me, and it rebuilt my brain, and the anxiety lifted, depression lifted, and the craving cycle stopped. And so then I was able to stop binging and purging, and it honestly saved my life. And that was my first introduction to functional wellness, which, wasn't called functional wellness in 1996. But here we are today.
So something that you said there was really interesting because, as you were saying, there were certain parameters that needed to exist, for you to get into these particular programs to help you with that. Do you think that those programs are still the same way today in terms of, needing for you to reach to a point to be, suicidal enough? So are those programs, do you know, especially where you are, has that changed there, or is it still pretty much the same?
Sadly, it's still pretty much the same, but I guess I shouldn't even say sadly, because had I gone through that program and I wasn't exposed to the amino acid therapy and everything that saved my life, my journey would have been a lot longer.
Mhm.
And maybe I would have never found what I actually did find. So I feel like God had a divine hand in all of that.
Why do you think that the amino acid therapy was effective?
Well, when your brain is severely depleted, so your neurotransmitters rely on specific amino acids in order to function well. And when your brain is severely depleted, those neurotransmitters don't fire correctly. And those control your mood and how you think and how you feel. And it helps your whole entire nervous system communicate with each other, with itself. And so if that's not there, then it's really hard to overcome that anxiety and depression. And so that's why fixing that deficiency is so vital to mental health and long lasting effects.
Got it. Yeah, and I think that's kind of new to me as well. Like, I mean, as a personal trainer, I do understand like amino acid profile and getting people, getting their protein profile, I guess you could say corrected or,
Right.
within the right realm. But in terms of looking at it from the point of view of helping with issues surrounding mental health and cognitive health, I guess I wouldn't have connected it to that. So that was just a really interesting perspective.
Yeah. It is profound. And most people, well, it's been around for decades, but most people still have never heard of amino acid therapy from a mental health perspective.
Now, I know you said you struggled with the eating disorder before, and then eventually faced a cancer diagnosis. What was your relationship with food and your body during that period?
So that was, well, when I went through the outpatient amino acid therapy, that was in 1996, and the cancer diagnosis was in 2007. So there was quite a span there. My relationship with food at that time was fantastic. I was the healthiest person I knew. My diet was clean as far as I understood it at that point in time. Of course, it gets better over time. But I did never expected a cancer diagnosis. And so
Right.
that really, it rocked my world and made me want to figure out why. Why did I
Right.
have that cancer diagnosis?
How old were you when you dealt with the cancer diagnosis?
I was 33.
33. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's young.
So almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, because unfortunately, I had a cousin who dealt with, I think, stage 4 kidney cancer.
Mm,
Sadly, he did lose his battle with it back in March this year.
okay. Sorry.
So he was 30 years old. So just,
Mhm.
that's one thing I've been noticing a lot. It seems to me, I could be wrong, but it feels like there's been an increase in cancers, especially among younger groups. So this
Yes.
is what I've been like a little concerned about. So that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering what your experience was. Yeah.
Yep. I was 33. I had a 5-month-old and an 8-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah.
So walk me through that experience. Like when you received the diagnosis, what was the first thing that went through your mind? And then what was your approach to it afterwards? Like planning out the next couple of months of your life. Like what did that look like?
Yeah. Well, it's probably not what you expect, but I went in because I had a growth on my leg, and they told me it was probably due to pregnancy because, like I said, my daughter was 5 months old at the time, and they're like, sometimes things just grow fast because of hormones. It's probably, I don't even remember what they told me it was, but don't worry about it. Well, my mom was convinced that it was melanoma,
Mm,
and I'm like, no, it's not. Anyway, so I went to get my stitches out, and the doc is like, I'm so sorry, but you do have, it was really rare form, fast growing. Mayo Clinic hadn't seen it in over 20 years. So it was a thing. And it was, when you have melanoma, they measure the depth of it. And it was a 4 out of 5. So it should have been everywhere in my body, and it was affecting everything from head to toe. And there wasn't any official treatment for it. If I wanted to do any treatment, it would have to be experimental, and I would
mm,
have to go to Cleveland Clinic and, all those kind of things. So they gave me all of that. And my husband wasn't with me at the time. And I went out to my car and I was like perplexed. I was really perplexed. And, I said to God at the time, I said, okay, my convictions. I remember putting my hands on the steering wheel. My convictions. You know that I said I would never do conventional treatment. So I still don't believe in it. I wasn't really scared of that diagnosis, to be honest with you. I just said,
mhm.
God, you either have to heal me outright or you have to send me to the right practitioners so that we can figure out why this happened. And that's what I said. And I went home and I told my husband and my son what had happened. And my son looked at me, he goes, God's going to heal you. I said, okay, we're going to receive that and we're going to hold on to that. And that is exactly what happened. I received a miracle, and then he opened doors for me to go see some really amazing practitioners to help me figure out why the cancer had invaded my body or grown in my body in the first place. So it was quite a journey.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's just been my experience that like the average American is very much dependent or reliant on conventional medicine
Yeah.
when it comes to especially cancer treatment. What was your background when it came to the exposure to the medical field and the exposure to health in general that led you to, I don't want to say be anti conventional medicine, but you seem to be very much a believer in like holistic health and healing. So, what was your background that led to you believing in that path?
Well, I had been in nursing school, and I had seen some things in nursing school that I was like, oh, it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on the other side. I wanted to be on the prevention side. And so I had, quit nursing school and did a lot of studying, a lot of research, got a degree in psychology, and then went down this health path because of the eating disorder. And so that's how I got exposed to all of this. And so at the time of the diagnosis, like I said, our diet was as clean as it could be at the time. And I was always researching and studying and following people. And I believed in chiropractic care and, all of the fringy stuff. So that's kind of where I was at the time, which was really helpful to me. And I honestly had read a book a few months before on cancer and realized, the body's designed to heal itself. I really believe that God created our bodies to heal itself. And so if we remove the interferences, give the body what it needs, I already understood that through amino acid therapy, that the body would heal. And so I wasn't afraid of the cancer. It was harder to deal with other people's emotions than it was to deal with a cancer diagnosis, to be honest. And so I could not consciously, ethically in my spirit, go to an oncologist appointment. I scheduled and canceled several of them because I had so much pressure. But when it came time to go, I'm like, I can't go because I didn't want them to speak those things over me and plant any seeds of doubt, because I knew that my body was healed and that I was on the exact path that I was supposed to be on. And I was seeing the exact practitioners that I needed to see. And it was such a journey in learning how to stand firm and be bolder than I'd ever been before.
Oh, that's amazing because, like, as I said, like I know a lot of people who, obviously go towards that conventional pathway. So that's, amazing
Yeah.
to hear. And, I know that your health struggles have not only affected your health and your body, but, also your finances and
Oh,
energy
yeah.
and family relationships. What did life look like at your lowest point?
My lowest point was honestly before the cancer diagnosis. It was when I was deep into the eating disorder. I was so anxious and so depressed. I barely slept. I quit nursing school. I quit my other classes. I barely went to work. I barely left the house. It was a mess. It was really a mess. I didn't know who I was or what I was supposed to be doing. And I binged and purged almost every day. I stole my roommate's food, and then I'd have to go to the grocery store and replenish it when she was gone. And it was a mess. I even stole food from the grocery store. I mean, I was just that desperate, so it was messy.
Yeah. And was there like a particular moment when you realized, I can't continue to live this way?
Yeah. I thought if I moved away from where I was at the moment and got away from, all the things triggering me, that would make a difference. So I did. I moved, stayed away, got a job as a nanny, but all that stuff followed me. And then the family that I nannied for, they started taking me to church, and I grew up in church. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus, all those kind of things. But I never really surrendered my life. I had to lay it all down and say, God, I can't do this. You have to heal me because I'm a mess. And so that's what I did. I heard a sermon from the pastor there, and it was something that I'd never heard before. And I just remember weeping and saying, God, here I am because I'm going to die unless you save me and heal me. And that's exactly what he did. And he led me to the outpatient clinic, and everything just started going better from there. Not that it was perfect. I still had a lot of healing to do and relationships and those kind of things, but that was a defining moment for sure.
Yeah. And I know you said that your recovery deepened um, your surrender to God. Like, what did surrender actually mean for you during that season? And I know that's a word, like surrender and submit is a word that we don't like to use in the
Right.
21st century because, we're afraid it sounds like slavery. But like, what did that mean to you in that moment?
That is a great question. It sent me into the word, into my Bible. Like I just soaked up the word of God and everything that in my life that was, whether this was the right thing or not to do at the time, I had to separate myself from the things that were keeping me from healing. And so
Mm.
I did that and just kind of got alone and just let the Lord deal with so many different things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's paramount. Like, and I've mentioned this on the show a lot of times. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and so
Mm,
a lot of that informed a lot of my decisions health wise. So
for sure.
being vegan for the last 20 years, and, just like valuing um, relationship with God above all. And so one of the things that I don't want to say that this is just only an Adventist thing, but there was a phrase called New Start. And
Mm,
that was often used as an identifier of the eight, what do you call the eight doctors of health,
yes.
and so one of the lead things was like trusting God, right? And so, I do think that that is important. One's relationship with God or one's relationship with a power that they see outside of themselves and above themselves, right? Because,
Yeah.
and I think the science is there that they're starting to see that people's faith actually is having a real tangible effect on their
Oh,
health,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So I don't know if
Mhm.
you can talk a little bit about what you've seen with clients who've recovered and what role has faith played in their life and their recovery.
Yeah, I think it's paramount. I really do. I have a recent client and she was, she came to me. She loved Jesus, deep believer. And she was super, super sick. And a lot of the things that we did made a profound difference for her. But in the end, to, have that full healing, it was a surrender. Again, it was a surrender. It was a submit, like, okay, Lord, I'm doing all this stuff. I know you can heal me. I know that the healing is available to me, and it was in that moment that, everything that hadn't shifted, and she woke up the next morning, and it was profoundly, profoundly different.
Seeing that impact with that particular client to that extent. And, obviously seeing it in your own life, how important was it for you to, or how reinforcing was it for you? Because you said that your son said that you were going to receive a healing and miracle. So how encouraging was it for you when your son said that? Like how did that feel? And like how empowering was that?
It was so powerful because it's such a childlike faith. Because
Mhm.
he's like, God's going to heal you, and it spoke to the fact, that he understood the word of God, and he just believed that. That's what he believed, and so I just took that and as a confirmation, because I just told God, either you're going to have to heal me outright, or you're going to have to lead me to people who can really help me. And he did both.
Mhm.
And so it was a tangible moment for me I feel like God just in his grace and his mercy just gifted me with that statement that just poured out of my son, which was
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah. Now, you describe yourself as a neuronutrition expert. For someone hearing that term for the first time, what exactly is neuronutrition?
It's just feeding your brain the nutrients that it needs so it will actually think and behave the way it was created to.
Now, how important is it for us to prioritize, foods, especially that are going to help our brains function correctly?
It's 100%. You have to prioritize foods that are going to heal your brain. You have to have the healthy fats. You have the clean proteins and the clean carbohydrates. You have to have everything that your brain needs to function, because if your nervous system is depleted, everything else is not going to function optimally.
Because I do see that, obviously being a personal trainer, one of the things that I see a lot is that in terms of functionality, the number one focus that a lot of people have is on muscle building and getting protein. Uh, do you think that the overemphasis on this is a mistake within society and within certain, you could call it departments of health?
It's a great question too, because I mean, it's important. Amino acids, every single thing in your body depends on amino acids, from your hormones to your enzymes to your hair, skin, and nails, everything, your bones, your blood vessels, all those things. So you have to have enough nutrition to supply those needs. I do think that there's a dogmatic, what do I want to say? It's just mainstream right now, dogmatic, like eating only protein, which I'm not opposed to
Yeah.
somebody doing a carnivore diet. I've seen great things happen from that. And our body's designed to go in and out of these types of things. We have to have a lot of diet variation in order for our body to be healthy head to toe. So I don't think there's any one perfect diet. I think your body's designed to eat a wide variety of foods.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that I do think that there's an overemphasis on getting protein in, and I do think, this is just my opinion, that the reason that there's an overemphasis on protein is that I think the meat industry has had a big impact on that, right?
Yeah,
I
could very
think
well
that
be.
they've put a lot of money and advertising behind, whether that is going to incorporate fast food chains or supermarkets or
Sure.
whatever, because there's a lot of that being pushed. And obviously, I am going to bring a little bit of my vegan bias in, but,
Sure.
I do see it a lot because people around me are like, yeah, but, you got to have this and you got to have that. But, I think that what we've seen from different people's experiences is that there are people who are living, and not just living, but thriving health-wise without, eating certain foods or without eating a high consumption of meat. As a matter of fact, from what I've seen from the science is that the more that we are eating less processed foods and eating more natural foods,
Right.
the better our function, or the better our bodies and minds function.
Yes, I 100% agree with that, Stefan. Yes.
Now, I know we tend to separate mental health from physical health. How interconnected are the brain, gut, hormones, blood sugar, and nutrition?
I don't think you can separate them. It's just who we are. Everything has to run together. Mental health is your physical health is your mental health. They both affect each other.
Last week I was speaking to Vincent Vanderbroek, and I think he's in Brussels. I think he's in Belgium. And, one thing that we discussed was how, within the Western society, there's this interesting separation of body and mind. And it seems that in the East, there's always been an understanding of these things always being interconnected.
Right.
Why does it seem like it took us a long time to catch up to that?
That is a great question. I don't know. I think it had a lot to do with the food industry, feeding us, separating food from everything else. I mean, it's integral in every society. Your socialization revolves around food in most societies. Your great grandma fed you really good stuff because she loved you. That was an emotional, it's body, mind, and spirit. And then all of a sudden, society takes on a new look in the industrial age, and families get separated and nobody's home anymore. And so food is just fuel instead of food being an experience that you have with your family. So I think that's how we got where we are.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Because I noticed that I had a friend of mine in college. She was dealing with Crohn's disease and she had an Italian background. And so, I told her and again, everybody can choose whatever diet they feel works best for them. But she did tell me that she wanted to navigate to a vegan diet, and but her family wasn't that supportive of her doing that. And I could understand. I'll mention on the podcast, when I was in college, I dated this girl that was Italian, like Italian.
Oh, yeah.
And
They're definitely not vegan.
and and so I remember times going over to her apartment. Hopefully she doesn't see this episode. But I remember her times going over to her apartment and, wanting to make out or whatever. And I know she just had like a big steak. And I'm like, I like you and love you, but you just had like this huge steak. You know what I'm saying? So there was all that. But yeah, she was like really Italian. So that I do get why that particular friend of mine, the issue that she had transitioning to a vegan diet But, I do think that it's really important within families to have that support. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to transition to a diet that you feel works best for you. So like for me, when I went vegan, I became vegan at 17. And
Okay.
so, um, my family was supportive of it. But the funny thing was, I didn't initially tell them. I secretly went vegan. And so, uh, yeah, because I remember living at that time with my sister and her husband. And so they had bought some food for me and they bought like some fish and they noticed that I wasn't touching the fish. And so they were like, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of went vegan. And they were like, you should have just told us that. And so I realized that, sometimes we kind of expect people to not support our decisions,
Right.
but sometimes they do. So, it's still worth it to just make it clear, like, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you be supportive of me in this moment?
Yeah. Well, I remember, when I went to the outpatient clinic and they're like, you have celiac, so you
Hmm.
can't eat gluten anymore. And this was like 1996. And so people were like, yeah, I don't know about that. And so my family wasn't supportive. Like I mean, like my mom is gone now, so I can say this and she won't get upset. Um, but she would lie to me. She would lie to me and tell me it was gluten free
Right.
and, feed me stuff that had gluten in it. And then I could tell once I ate it because my tongue would get numb,
Hmm.
after not eating gluten for a while. But then I'd have such severe gut pain later.
Right.
And then I get headaches and stuff. But she didn't believe it was a thing. So it took a long time for my
Yeah.
family to come around. Really not until I had kids. So
Right.
yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting how your body really knows the difference. Cause
Yeah.
like first couple of years after going vegan, like I could always tell if something I was eating had butter in it because
Oh.
my tongue
Mhm.
would make this like interesting separation from the rest of my mouth. And it was just my tongue would be like, whatever you're eating right now is definitely butter. Right. Like it's just like that's what my tongue was screaming out to me. And I'm like, oh, hold on.
Uh-huh.
Like let's put this aside. Like so I was
Yeah.
always very careful after that, in terms of whatever it was I was eating, checking the ingredients, and trying to prioritize cooking for myself more so that I knew what
Uh-huh.
was I was putting into my body. But yeah, it's just like those family relationships and diet are so important, and just to have those open conversations with our loved ones. Yeah,
Absolutely. Because it's part of our relationship. I mean, food is relationship. So
yeah.
yeah.
So just shifting gears a moment and going a little bit deeper into mental health. When a woman, comes to you and she says, I have anxiety, what are some of the underlying factors that you begin to look at?
So first, we're going to look at diet. Most people come to me and they just don't eat enough to start with. So they're very, very underfueled in all areas, protein, fats, carbohydrates everywhere. And they're just eating garbage most of the time, or they're living on caffeine for at least half the day. And so then they're trying to make up for that with food that's not healthy for them. So
Mhm.
that's generally an issue. Most of them are not getting enough sleep. They don't have a good daily rhythm. They're not getting outside. They're under artificial lights all day long. Those are huge factors. And, doing that over a long period of time will create anxiety and depression because your body is just exhausted. And so then we're looking at adrenal exhaustion, pituitary challenges. Usually there's a hidden infection of some kind. So we're looking at all those different things.
And that kind of leads into the next question because I was wondering if nutritional deficiencies actually produce symptoms that someone might interpret as anxiety, depression, or emotional instability.
Yeah, absolutely. If we get somebody eating a really good diet, a lot of times the anxiety definitely cuts in half, or maybe even will go away for somebody.
So I've been told for a while and been looking at studies when it comes to B vitamins and mood, right? From
Mhm.
everything from niacin to pyridoxine. So how important is it for us to be getting those B vitamins in, especially as it relates to mood?
B vitamins are key, especially B6. B6 plays a key role in your neurotransmitter production, your body's ability to use the amino acids, minerals, especially. I'm always having people, we've got to increase your salt. We've got to get those electrolytes in. And I don't like the electrolyte packets. So when I say electrolytes, I'm not talking about, those electrolyte packets. I'm talking about real salt that, was created for us to use and stuff. So it's really important.
Now, what are some of the most common deficiencies or imbalances you see in women experiencing anxiety or chronic stress?
Again, just basic nutrition deficiencies, but we'll go a step further. There's sleep deficiencies. Their adrenals are deficient. I see that in 100% of the cases. Either they're making enough cortisol and they don't use it, or they're just flatlined and their body is to the point where they barely make any cortisol, and then their hormones are extremely low as well. I mean, I just had a 19-year-old whose testosterone literally was a 1, and she was beyond postmenopausal in her progesterone. Like, her hormones were just totally tanked at 19. Yeah.
How much of that do you think is linked to the quality of the food, right? Because, like, people may be eating like what are classically deemed as healthy foods, but let's say that you have a fruit that may have gone through some like genetic modified processing, right?
Yeah.
Then now, and again, sometimes that's not always easy to necessarily detect, right? Because
Yeah.
you may be going to, I don't know, let's say a Whole Foods or to Trader Joe's, and you getting what you think is the best quality in terms of your food, and maybe, you know, something good got mixed up in there somewhere, which I doubt is likely the case. But I'm pretty sure in most cases people are going to stores buying healthy foods, but sometimes it may be genetically modified, or it may have been exposed to some really bad hygienic practices. So how often do you think it is the quality of the food?
I think the quality of food matters. But I still think more than the quality of the food is just actually eating whole food.
Mm,
So I definitely think there's a complete difference between, conventionally grown steak and a grass-fed steak. Hands down, there's a lot of difference there. But if I could get somebody to just not have Taco Bell and go to a conventionally grown steak and green beans and whatever, their health is still going to increase even if they're not eating organic. So it's just getting rid of those processed foods, I think, is the biggest key. And then when you have that opportunity to take the next step to eat locally grown, organic foods, those types of things, I think that's when your health can take that next level.
mhm.
But we have to get rid of those packaged processed foods.
Now, looking at like blood sugar, like how significant is blood sugar regulation when it comes to mood and anxiety?
It's paramount because if your blood sugar is going up and down, your mood, your brain, your cognitive function is
Mhm.
going to go up and down. If your blood
Mm.
sugar is unstable, your brain is not stable.
So in that case, could a situation like that lead to issues like, overwhelm and fog and
Yes,
like, okay, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I am also asking for myself, because I've noticed that even though I know some of it has to do with how I've been sleeping recently, so I'll be frank, and I've mentioned on the podcast, I've been putting a lot of work into this podcast being successful.
hmm
So a lot of times I'm up late editing,
hmm
and then I'm editing my podcast and I'm editing another person's podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so now I'm really trying to take things back, because I'm running a podcast called I Choose Health,
hmm
and I'm not choosing health.
You're not choosing health.
Right?
Sleep is like almost every podcast I'm on, people are like, what is the one thing people can do? Just guard your sleep.
Yeah.
Like, if you can sleep really, really well, that's going to take care of so many things, and you're going to have the energy, the thought processes to make the other changes that need to happen. You have to sleep. You have to sleep enough, and you have to have the quality sleep. Like,
Yeah.
that should be your number one priority, no matter what's going on in your life.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that even like when it comes to not getting enough sleep, then it starts to lead to really like other bad health decisions, right? Because
Right?
now you're up, and now what's happening is when you're supposed to be sleeping, your digestive system now is working overtime,
There you
and
go.
it's telling you like, hey, just
Oh, I'm hungry.
grab something to bite, grab something to eat, right? And
Yeah.
and then so this is where like this week has been and I'm going to be 100% vulnerable here, and hopefully this doesn't backfire on me, but like it's led to me having some issues this week where I'm like, okay, I really need to get on top of it, because as I'm talking to you, I'm experiencing like a slight pain, which it feels like it's around my colon area.
Mm,
So it can lead to a lot of discomfort yesterday. It led to me having a difficult time teaching my fitness classes yesterday. And so I'm like, okay, I got to get back on top of this. I got to
Right.
take care of it. So I'm not 100% sure exactly what it is, but it does sound like there may be some clog. I'm not not a health expert on that end of it. I don't know. Well, I don't know if I should ask you, but I don't know if you would have an idea of what it could be, but I do
Well,
think
if
that
you're
there's
not
a
getting
connection.
enough sleep, your
Yeah.
colon isn't clearing the way it needs to clear, your liver's not clearing the way it needs to clear, so things will get backed up.
Got it. Got it. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So for those listening to I Choose Health, the host of I Choose Health will be making those changes. And so I am definitely working on that. And I'll give you guys an update. So I'm definitely working on that. So got it. Uh, so can you explain what happens to someone mentally and physically when their blood sugar is constantly spiking and crashing? Right? Because I know you just said what it can do in terms of mood and everything but what are the other things that come when that blood sugar is going up and down?
Yeah. So, well, for one, your adrenal glands respond to stress. So, your glucose going up and down, that is a stress on the body. And so, your adrenal glands are constantly trying to balance things out, balance things out. And if you don't regulate that blood sugar glucose level, then you're going to exhaust your adrenal glands. Your cortisol will become dysregulated, and then that's going to affect your hormones, your sex hormones. And nobody wants their sex hormones to tank, right? Especially as we age.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. And then when those sex hormones tank, what happens to your muscles? Your muscles atrophy. Your brain starts to atrophy. Your eyesight gets worse. Maybe your hearing gets worse. I mean, you have this whole cascade of things that happen if you cannot regulate your glucose.
Now, there's a phrase people sometimes hear, and that's, anxiety isn't just in your head. From your perspective, what does that mean?
Well, anxiety affects everything head to toe. So if your mind is running on overdrive, your body's on overdrive. If you're depressed, your body's depressed. Like nothing is going to work optimally because it's all interconnected. And yes, we think about things and that's where we associate anxiety, but that is affecting how your heart functions, how your lungs function, how your adrenals function, how your bladder functions. I've seen bladder issues clear up once the nervous system is calm.
Now, are there cases where someone has spent, years trying to address anxiety psychologically when there may also be a physiological component that hasn't been, investigated or addressed?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I see women who have been on medications for years, have been to counselors, have been to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they're still anxious.
With that, do you have the experience where when you try to explain to someone the cognitive link and the psychological link, are there patients who kind of look at you when they're like, I don't think it's that. Like, I think it might be something else. Like, are there people who are skeptical of what you're saying to them that they see as a connection?
Maybe every now and then, but
Right.
99% of the time, no, because when people come to me, they know that something needs to shift. And so they're not really skeptical about anything. They just want to feel better.
And what signs might suggest that someone should look beyond stress alone and investigate nutrition, hormones, gut health, or other physical contributors?
I'm not sure I understood your question. Can you do that one again?
Yeah. So, like, in terms of particular signs, like symptoms that come up, right?
Oh,
Like, that might suggest that someone should look beyond stress, right?
gotcha.
It may be something else.
Yeah. If you're not sleeping at night, fibromyalgia, like
Mm.
if you have a chronic pain. I mean, there's so many different things. We have to fix the deficiency in the brain and then we have to see what's left over. And then if there's anything left over, then we can address those things, like a hidden infection or something. But if you're always overwhelmed, you can't focus, you're craving foods for comfort, for focus, for escape, whatever it might be, or you have a certain addiction, those are going to be amino acid deficiencies, or at least that's a component of it.
So, I've seen the impact that, I guess you could call it mental health medications or antidepressants, SSRIs have on people. But what do you wish more women understood about, antidepressants, anxiety medications, and nutrition?
That your body is not deficient in the medication. Like you can't medicate away a nutrient deficiency. And so if we address the nutrition piece first, you're not going to need that medication most of the time.
Yeah.
I see so many women misdiagnosed on medications that they don't need to be on, should never have been put on because nobody looked at anything else going on with them. What if your estrogen is super low? What if you don't have any testosterone? What if your adrenals are tired? What if you have Epstein-Barr? What if you have Lyme disease? Like all these women who come to me, nobody's checked any of those things. And all of those things will trigger anxiety, mold in your home. It's not always just you have to talk through things. You can't talk away a deficiency either. You can't talk away an infection. You actually have to address those things.
Do you think that there are enough medical departments talking to each other? So, for example, like you have, doctors working within conventional medicine. And then, obviously there are those who work within integrative health or integrative medicine. When it comes to, coming across certain conditions, do you think that if both of these entities would talk to each other a little bit more as regards to dealing with, certain clients or certain cases that they see come up, that we would be exposed to a lot more that may be able to help us on a whole when it comes to healing certain ailments?
Yeah, I wish there was better communication. I really, really do. Yeah, that would be helpful to everybody.
Yeah. Because, as much as I am for like holistic health, I do think that obviously there's some benefits to conventional medicine, but I do think that more of these entities and agencies should be talking to each other. And I think,
Yeah.
it would definitely be helpful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've experienced over the years when people who've been on medication, so they need their, prescribing physician to be on board and willing to help, taper off the medication as we do the amino acid therapy. Most of the docs are open to doing that because they realize people probably don't need to be on those meds and there's a better way instead of having somebody on medication for 30 years. But they still don't want to learn what it actually is that I'm doing or another practitioner is doing that's helping that person get better, which is the frustrating part because, I want to educate the entire world on amino acid therapy for mental health and how that's such a profound change. They're open, but they're not open to learning, which to me is the frustrating piece because they're still going to put the next person on a medication, even though they just helped this one person get off their medications.
So just shifting gears again, because I want to also address one, how people are perceiving the work that you're doing, as well as, obviously the podcast and get into that a little bit deeper. But, you're known as the Calm Mom. And where did that name come from?
I love helping moms because I feel like we're the heart of the home and we have a ripple effect. So if we're calm, then everything else in our home will follow suit. And if our home is calm, then people are drawn to us. And then it's like, it's just ripple effect out into society. So we can help the mom, we can help everything else.
Yeah. And how did any of that then lead to the development of the podcast?
I just wanted to get more information out. And so how do you reach more people? You start a podcast, you start a YouTube channel, you do all those things because I can't reach everybody, one-on-one out of my office.
Yeah. Now, what does being a calm mom actually mean to you, right? Because surely it doesn't mean never becoming frustrated, overwhelmed, or stressed, right? So what does that look like for you?
That's responding appropriately given the situation. If it's appropriate to be angry, be angry. If it's appropriate to be sad, be sad. But let's not have inappropriate emotions at the wrong time where, it affects our relationships and our everyday life. That's kind of what it means. Just loving your family, doing life together, and, living the life God gave us to live.
So I know that there's some people who, depending on their experience, because I know some people personally who, when it comes to situations that might be a little bit either disappointing or frustrating, their go-to response is usually something of a blow up, right? Or they're like really angry. How much of that do you think is connected to one, experiences with dealing with conflict growing up? Two, when it maybe some diet imbalances or, nutritional imbalances, like how much of those things do you think are connected? Like, is there one that outweighs the other in terms of that person's response?
What I've seen is when we fix the deficiency, so whatever pattern was learned from childhood, and we fix the deficiency going on in the brain and the nervous system, then people are able to change those patterns without a lot of effort. So that's the exciting piece. So it's both of them, but I feel like we have to address the physical piece in order for the emotional habitual piece to remedy itself as well.
So I'm going to mention something, and it may sound a little bit strange, but
Okay.
maybe you've heard it before. But as I shared before, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and one of the things that we heard a lot, so one of the important, pivotal, you can call it pioneers of the faith, was a woman called Ellen G. White, right? And so
Mhm.
she had a lot of visions this is like back in the 1800s. And so one of the things that she started talking about was called like the health message. And so this was like 1860s, 1870s. And she started to write about the consumption of meat. And she started to say things like how um, the consumption of meat could lead to people being more aggressive in their
Right.
behavior. And this was something she was saying over 150 years ago. When she said it, people thought she was crazy. Is there any scientific that you've seen connection between the consumption of, meat, the consumption of meat and aggressive behavior?
In my practice, no, I haven't seen that at all. In fact, I've seen the opposite. So when we're nourishing the brain, when people add more protein, and I don't mean, 300 grams of protein a day, but just
Mm.
protein into their diet, meat and, vegetarian proteins, their brain gets better and they become less emotional, less aggressive. So I haven't seen that, Stefan,
This is something that because like obviously I've heard
which
different
is
perspectives on it. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I haven't seen it. But different perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think so many mothers are living in a nearly constant state of overstimulation?
Society,
Mhm.
we don't live the way that we used to. Most of us are working outside the homes, and we're still trying to manage our homes and taking our kids to 17 different activities, and those are things that I don't know how old you are, but I know you're younger than I am. I mean, we did activities, but not to the degree that we have today.
Mhm.
Everybody's just exhausted
Yeah.
from everything that's going on, and nobody gets enough time to rest, especially moms.
I was listening to a couple months ago, I had Dr. Amy Beheimer on. And so,
Mhm.
she's been talking about autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
she was saying that she was listening to Dr. Gabor Mate. And, he mentions that historically, because women have typically taken on the load of raising families,
Uh-huh.
that has probably been one of the main reasons why the systems have been overloaded and why
Yeah.
women are probably developing autoimmune diseases at a higher rate than men are developing autoimmune diseases. So, what is your take on that and your experience with that when it comes to working with different clients?
I would agree. There's just too much.
Hmm.
There's just women are just doing too much that we weren't created to do all of the things, and we've been fed a lie that we can do it and have it all, but it comes at a cost if you're not intentional about what it means to have it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing that there's been a shift now in society because since women are realizing that that's been a difficult thing, that women are kind of shifting back to, society where like we're okay, we're gonna let the men kind of like deal with this. We need to take a rest. We
Yeah.
need to have like a simpler life or, quieter life. I don't know if you've been seeing that more
Yes.
with like, okay.
Yeah, I have. And it's beautiful to watch. And I think my son is 27 and I notice, his generation, his group of friends, they are really, really taking a breath.
Mhm.
The women and the men are just kind of reevaluating what they want and doing things a little simpler than,
Right.
my generation did.
Now, for the mom listening who says, Laurie, I don't have time, to overhaul my diet, meditate for an hour, and completely change my life, where should she start just to, make things easy for her in terms of a transition? Like, yeah, she's thinking about trying to make that big change for better health.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that sleep thing again we were talking about earlier. Just start prioritizing your sleep. Everything else will still be there. If you can't afford to hire somebody to clean your house,
Mhm.
then if you don't move it, you don't know it's dusty. How about that? Like
Right.
all those things that we spend so much time trying to make perfect, it doesn't really need to happen.
Well, Laurie, this has been amazing. We're kind of running short on time, but I do want to have you back to go into just some deeper things, especially as it relates to functional health, because I think that we hear that term functional health, and obviously the word that comes to mind is function. But obviously, eating in a functional way has a deeper impact.
Sure.
I know you've given the advice on get enough sleep, but what is one thing that people can do in relation to their diet to really help to move them in a healthier direction?
Stop the packaged food, the convenience foods. Just start eating whole foods. Go buy some fruit and, vegetables, and stop drinking caffeinated drinks. Just pick one thing. Just pick
Mhm.
one thing. If you're a coffee drinker, start cutting down your coffee. Don't
Right.
have it after 5 o'clock at night. Then go down. Don't have it after 2 o'clock. Start weaning yourself off of those things that are causing havoc in your body. You
So
don't
I'm
have to
not
do it
trying.
all the time.
I'm not trying to get you in trouble with any beverage companies, right? But like when
I
you
don't
talk
care.
about with like caffeinated drinks or uh maybe a lot of these drinks that are carbonated as well, are we including companies like Celsius and
Yeah.
a lot of these like quote unquote prebiotic sodas now? Like, are we putting that in that category as well?
I am. Yeah. Yeah. I think Celsius is one of the worst because the way it's marketed, there's so
Mm.
many people, thinking, well, I'm not drinking coffee. I'm just drinking a Celsius. It's water. And it's not. It's still wreaking havoc in your brain and on your adrenals. And so there's better options out there. Like water with lemon is
Mm.
amazing.
What about, okay, so because coming back to that idea of like the health of the colon and
Mm.
because I'm not gonna lie, this is me being vulnerable
Yeah,
again.
there you go.
Um, I am someone, I don't necessarily drink the Celsiuses at a high clip or high degree, but I do drink them from time to time. And then there's another company as well. It's kind of similar, but supposed to be cleaner.
Hmm.
Um, how much of that do you think could also be impacting the way that my body's processing things as well?
It depends how often you drink them. If you're drinking them every single day, I think it has a huge impact. If you're drinking it once a week, probably not a huge impact. Yeah.
Gotta keep that in mind. I'll keep that in mind. Well, this has been helpful. And in terms of where our audience can work with you, connect with you, where should they be reaching out?
You can go to my website, lauriehammer.com, and those some free downloads. I'll give you a free download for the audience as well.
Mhm.
And they're welcome to check that out.
So yeah, we'll definitely put those links in the description. And in terms of the podcast, is that available on all platforms as well?
Yes, Take Back My Brain podcast is available wherever you listen to your podcast.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Laurie, thank you so much for this. This has been not only helpful for my audience, but helpful for me as well.
Good.
So thank you
Good. I've
so much
enjoyed
for
it.
that. And yeah, to my audience, thank you again for tuning in. This is Stefan, just reminding you that choosing health is about choosing power, possibility, and purpose. And please be sure to subscribe so that you'll be notified every time we put out an episode. And please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else that you listen to podcasts. This is Stefan tuning out, and I'm hoping that you have an amazing week.